Hey everybody, it's Kevin. Before we get started with the show, I just want to give you a little forewarning. I had some technical difficulties on this episode. Zoom calls kept kicking in and out, so the editing might be a little choppier and less, flowy than what I would normally like. A few times Dan actually has to take the episode and carry it for a little bit. Some of that I left in. Some of it I didn't. You'll be able to get all of that on our Patreon. Every little thing that Dan does while I'm gone once Patreon gets started. But until then, apologize for the quality of the show. It'll be better next time. Promise. All right. Hit the music. The subject of today's episode is our very first listener-suggested method of torture. Also, the very first in a series of ongoing episodes where we will focus on animals used in the torment and execution of the unfortunate. Where larger animals like elephants, water buffalo, and horses have been used over the millennia, what we will see here is that sometimes smaller is better. Because what these creatures lack in size, they make up for in sheer numbers and ferocity. Not to mention the fact that they have almost taken over the entire planet and can be found in virtually every country on Earth, making them extremely accessible. Humans have taken this, what can be very gentle and playful pet, and used it to inflict some of the most horrifying and grotesque traumas to the body that you could imagine. Spanning from the times of Nero all the way up to just a few years ago, these critters have been used by dictators, executioners, gangs, and even serial killers. Today we cover rats. I'm Kevin Young.
And I'm afraid of badgers.
This is torture. When we were doing the D&D shit with our group, we were asking each other questions about our characters.
Yeah.
Before, and the next one we were supposed to do, if we ever recorded again, was supposed to be what our character's biggest fear was, and mine was going to be chinchillas.
Oh,
because they're unnaturally soft, and they clean themselves by making themselves dirtier. They clean themselves by putting dust on themselves. It's alien. It's ridiculous.
Oh,
they're terrifying.
Yeah. I remember. Yeah.
And Seymour was going to be absolutely
it
terrified.
Gets cleaner the more dirty.
By chinchillas. It'd be the one thing he couldn't turn into would be a chinchilla because he'd look in a mirror and scare himself. So,
good old Seymour. Seymour butts.
Seymour.
What was it? What was it again? Was it a badger that Phil fought that bit him in an inappropriate area?
Yeah.
Or what was it?
Yeah,
was it
I
ferret
believe,
or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So, just so this
Badgers
method was, again requested by Joey from the Please Don't Follow Me Home podcast. If you would like to request an episode, go ahead and email us torturepod@gmail.com or shoot us a DM in the Instagram or the Twitter and let us know. One of my favorite Deftones songs is called Rats, Rats, Rats.
We might have some audio issues, just so you know.
Okay.
Because you froze up there for a second and you started talking like a robot, and then you went. I might end up caught up with yourself.
I don't know why the internet is being so fucking stupid today. I don't get it.
It's like your superpower is being able to go super slow and then suddenly super fast to catch up at real time. So you're actually pretty useless in that case. Real time, man.
But no, one of my favorite songs, Deftones songs, is actually called Rats, Rats, Rats.
I probably know it if I heard it. I don't listen to enough of them, or haven't listened to enough of them, if you get me.
And my favorite, the H.P. Lovecraft story, Rats in the Walls. Minus the, very controversial name for the cat. I don't know if you've ever read Rats.
I haven't read it yet. I have his complete works.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of halfway through Cthulhu, but I haven't made it to anything else yet.
The Rats in the Wall.
Because I started reading Misery.
Okay.
And I started reading something else as well. three of them, basically.
Well, Rats in the Walls is a short story, and it's got the cat's name. So remember, H.P. Lovecraft was a pretty big racist, and the cat is black. So I will let you just figure out on your own what he named the cat in that fucking book. It's great. It's great. I was listening to it on audio too. It was great. And I was listening to it. All of a sudden, he says the name of the cat. I was like, okay, that might not be great. I might not want to listen to the rest of it. I listened to the rest of the story. The story's really good. I was like, why couldn't you name it just literally anything else?
Like we have a black cat and we just named it Sooty. Very simple. Oh, you're frozen. I'm going to do an impersonation of you now. Quality programming for our Patreon. Oh, and it's just me, people. It's just me. Welcome to the Dan Show. We don't need Kevin anymore. Right, let's talk about rats. So... Oh, rats. Go fuck yourselves, oh rats. Go fuck yourselves, oh rats. Go fuck yourselves, oh rats. Kevin's coming back, oh rats. Kevin's coming back, oh it's Kevin. Welcome back, Kevin. Rats are bastards, aren't they, Kevin? Fucking bastard rats. Fuck you, rats.
So Dan, let's imagine you're in medieval Germany, strapped to a table. Weasley man in robes keeps nagging at you to tell them what they want to know. You refuse, so they bring in a cage that's kind of jumping back and forth with loud squeals emitting from it. They hold it to your face and say again, "Tell us what we want to know." And you turn your head to see a cage full of rats. Now let's say
Frenchman.
Now let's say you still don't give anything up or anyone up. This won't be a torture for him for a minute and see if he changes his mind type of thing. Once they go through with this, there's really no turning back. So they would dump the rats into a clay pot and then turn the pot over onto your bare belly or a metal pan or whatever they got laying around. Now you could feel their little paws and claws and fur walk and scrape across your skin. Then they take some hot coals and start placing them on top of the bowl. The rats begin to get hot. They begin to get antsy. They begin to look for ways to get away from the growing heat. Now there's one thing you need to know about rats is that they aren't above chewing their way out of situations. They only need a little hole to slip into, so they look for the easiest substance to gnaw through, which is also in the opposite direction of the heat. That just so happens to be your flesh. They bite and chew, and scratch through your belly and crawl in. But they don't stop there. So the human body is, after all, also a very warm place.
And very delicious, too.
From what I understand, yes. They keep biting and they keep chewing and they keep scratching through intestines, through your stomach, through your kidneys and bladder and liver and spleen and everything else that gets in their way until they finally find a way out. Now, that could be through any number of ways. Out the side of the body, out the mouth, or out the other way.
The butt.
Yeah. Hey, let's face it. There's no surviving having your insides ripped apart. So this is pretty much a death sentence.
Is that where the term "giving a rat's ass" comes from?
I don't know. I doubt it, but it's a possibility. I don't give a rat in my ass. All the way up in there. This is by far the most famous way rats were used in torture, thanks mostly to a certain scene from one of my favorite shows of all time, last couple seasons notwithstanding, Game of Thrones. which obviously was going to be something that I'm sure Dan brings up when we get to the poppy culture part of it, at least a little bit.
Avoided that one on purpose because I knew it was going to be mentioned.
Fair enough.
So, yep.
But this was by no means the only way these rodents of mass destruction were used. So let's go all the way back to the beginning. Ancient Rome, specifically to the time of Nero, one of the many dictators we will cover on this show at some point, between 54 and 68 AD. Now, I found 2 different ways rats were used other than the whole clay pot method. Both of these were more of an execution rather than an interrogation. So the first simply consisted of a barrel big enough to hold a human and as many rats as necessary. So the criminal would be placed in the barrel, some very hungry rats, and then the lid was shut. And once the rats were full, they'd be dumped out, and new rats would be added in, till nothing was left. So you just bone, really. The other process needed, a little bit more preparation. The victim would be laid out on a table, strapped down, his belly slit open, his insides pulled out a little bit, all while still alive, and the rats would be set loose on his body. The slit in the belly giving the rats easy access to the insides to be ripped out and eaten.
Sounds joyful, so it does. Completely joyful.
And we can jump over to the Indian subcontinent, where prisoners would be placed in trousers that were loose, specifically in the groin area. And the pant legs would be tied shut. The rats would then be poured into the pants from the top, and the waist would also be tied, tight. And then you just use your imagination to figure out what route the rats would take to get out and the little bitty snacks they would have on their way.
Fuck that.
He's like, I don't want to use my imagination. I don't want to. You can't make me.
Exactly, yeah. Oh. This is horrible.
But medieval Germany is really where the shit got amped up. So they wouldn't just use clay pots. Many times, the cages that the rats were kept in had bottoms that could just be torn away. And instead of just heating up the top of the object, they would heat the entire thing. So not only would you get the ripping and tearing of the rats, you would also get the burning from the cage. Just, little icing on that shit cake before you die. They didn't always put the cage on your belly. Sometimes they'd put the cage on your face. With this method...
Yeah, I was going to say, I saw something to do with that, all right.
They didn't have a big area to escape to. Like when they put it on your belly, they have your entire cavity in here to just kind of move around and get out. Face, it's very bony, which rats could chew through, but even when you get through that, there's still not a whole lot of room for that many rats. I'm very sorry about this because I do not condone animal death. But the rats many times would just get in your face and then die from the heat. Inside your face. You have dead rats.
Nice. Jesus Christ.
And then they would just be left there to rot. Kind of as a final fuck you.
Oh.
How did he die? With rats in his face.
Dear Lord.
And sometimes they would sidestep the whole coals on clay pot thing and just cut a hole in the prisoner's abdomen and stuff a rat inside and, let him go to town. They also had a device called the rat chair, where a victim would be tied to a chair and a cage would be placed over their head. Then hungry rats would be dumped into the cage, and the rats would begin to eat the prisoner's nose and ears and cheeks and eyes or whatever else they could, and left there to live in the cage until the victim, died.
Yeah. Or had a face full of dead rats.
Had a face full of dead rats. One or the other.
Whichever came first.
You would probably die.
Johnny Ratface there.
You would die before you had a face full of rats. But yeah, that's how it would go. The pot method was also used during the Dutch revolt by the Dutch leader Diederik Saunier to get valuable information. Most of the time, the victim would tell them anything they wanted, long before the coals were ever placed on the pot or the cage. They'd see the rats. They'd be like, no. What do you want?
Yeah.
I'll give you. You want my PIN number? What do you? I'll give you my ex-girlfriend's address. I don't know. Whatever you want.
Like some of the. Is it like some of the other previous methods we covered where we assumed that it was the image of it alone, the fear of the thought of it?
Yes.
Like the head crusher and a few others. So we assumed that, yeah.
Yeah, except...
As soon as they see it, it's like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Nope.
Except there is documented proof that this actually happened. No documented proof that the head crusher ever did anything.
Yeah.
I don't know which one I would rather. Like, which would you, head crusher or rats? Probably, I might go head crusher.
I'd go head crusher. I think it'd be a bit quicker.
Yeah. Yeah, not as icky.
Yeah.
Kind of like, ew. Ugh.
I'd just rather. How about neither of them? Like, as one of these things, I know people say, "Well, if you had a gun to your head, well, I'll take the gun to the head, please. Thank you very much."
Yeah,
in that case,
just pull the trigger. Oh fuck! And of course, we can't talk about torture or rats without bringing up the British. So now the British weren't. They weren't quite as inventive as the Germans or the Romans. They would much rather steal their inventions from people than come up with their own. But
I can imagine just sitting there hitting people over the head with a rat. Like, and that's their.
Is this how they did it? Is this how they did it over in Germany?
Bonk. Tell me what I want to know. Yeah, boom. Come on, boom.
Yeah, if they could, but if they couldn't steal it. They were not going to come up with it on their own. It's like that. There's a joke. Why are the pyramids in Egypt? Because the British couldn't fit them inside their museums.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, they steal everything. In the Tower of London, there was a room known as Rat's Dungeon, or the Dungeon Among the Rats. Again, very inventive. It was a pitch-black cell that sat underneath the waterline of the Thames River. Now, as the river rose, rats swept up in the shores would float in. And when the rat got into the cell and spotted the poor guy who was chained up in the corner, they'd go nibble on the fingers and toes of the prisoner. And since it was pitch black, you were sitting there in the corner, you would hear the skittering of the feet and the squeaks, but couldn't actually see what was coming until it started to eat you. Or, crawl on you. According to reports, at least one person, a Catholic layman named Thomas Sherwood, actually spent months in this cell, and it ended up driving him mad. Of course.
Yeah.
It was actually happened to most that were put in the dungeon. Prisoners were simply locked inside a confined space with a group of rats, a small room, no way to avoid them, slowly being driven mad as the rats gnawed at your limbs. The idea of rat eating into their guts or simply crawling over their limbs while they slept struck terror into the victims. Terror.
Of course it would, though. I'd shit myself if I physically could. I'm sure if I was in that situation,
Until eventually you found one that was gentle and you befriended it. At first you didn't get along. At first you hated each other. He kept trying to bite you and you kept trying to swat at him to eat him. But he saved your life one day and you became best of friends.
Sounds like
they made
average marriage. So
they made a Disney movie out of it. He crawled up onto your head and taught you how to cook.
Called the Green Mile. It's Mr. Jangles.
So when a torturer is trying to get information out of somebody, fear can sometimes be a more effective tool than physical pain. The fear was also a good way to add a psychological element to the torture when the goal was simply just to inflict suffering. But What makes rats such little murder machines? Why are they so terrifying? Well, let's take a minute for a quick zoology lesson.
Because they're assholes. Sorry, that's the quick scientific explanation right there. They're just complete utter assholes.
Well, I know some people who have had rats as pets, and they can actually be very sweet and loving.
They're a different kind of rat, though, aren't they? Like, it's...
I mean, they didn't just find them in a back alley somewhere and decide to take them home.
Yeah, exactly. Like my cats, the assholes are very sweet and loving, but you wouldn't see me walking up to a leopard and be like, hey, baby, hey. You can, like, it's a very, very different scenario right there. So,
I love how you make the jump from house cat to leopard.
Oh, you froze. Oh, he's gone again, people. He just dropped. So it's back to the Dan Show. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to your midnight hour run, and we're here with some smooth music to get you through the night and your commute home. And that's why Kevin's an asshole.
Okay, if the sound is different for everybody out there, and it seems weird now, I had to move everything from my little studio out in my garage into my bedroom because for some reason we're not getting Wi-Fi out there for the Zoom call. So as far as the stuff that just happened, if you're just listening to it on just a regular podcast, you probably won't hear it. But for the Patreon members, I'm sure you had quite the experience.
With me, it was mainly me sitting there, kind of going, how am I going to fill this dead air, right? And I started reading stuff about rat torture off Wikipedia, and I was talking about rats in movies, and I started learning how to play Rats by Ghost.
Somebody had said the best thing with Ghost was they saw him, they're like, ooh, they look scary and heavy, and then they listened to him and they said it's just goth Bon Jovi.
Yeah, they're pretty shit.
Apparently your whole background is loading.
Yeah, I changed. I was hoping to trick you because I changed it and I was going to go like that. Because you appeared and then disappeared originally. I was like, oh, this will be really funny. I was like, oh no.
Fucking hell.
You won't.
All right, so
but anyway,
I believe I left off with a quick zoology lesson. So, when most people think about rats, they think about, like, big mouse. But rats and mice, not the same. While mice are usually 12 to 30 grams, or 0.4 to 1.1 ounces, the house mouse has a small, slender body, 6 to 11 centimeters, so... You know, for all of us who don't use metric system, 2.4 to 4.3 inches long. And its tail is about equal its body length. The average rat is about 20 inches long, so 50 centimeters, and weighs approximately 12 ounces, or 0.34 kilograms. But the big ones, the leopard ones, as you would, as Dan would say, the giant rats, are more than 32 inches long, and weigh more than 3 pounds, or 1.36 kilograms.
There is an island off our coast,
yep,
off Dublin. I need to double check the name of it, but it is well known to have gigantic rats.
Giant rats, yeah.
It's a place that nobody lives on, little tiny island, but apparently the rats are massive.
Well, I mean, if they have no other natural predators, they're just gonna get bigger and bigger and bigger until...
Exactly.
Until you have the giant swamp rats from Princess Bride walking through.
Yeah. I think it's Ireland's Eye, or else it's... I can't remember which of the islands it is. I'll have to double check. It might be Lambay Island.
See, we have a lot of little islands off the coast of America too, but most of our islands are tropical. Islands coming off the coast of Ireland, not tropical.
No, far from it.
Filled with rats.
Far from it, yeah.
So on top of that, they are overly abundant. So rats begin breeding as soon as 5 weeks of age and continue until about age 2. Females are fertile approximately every 3 weeks, and during that time, they have been known to mate up to, now Dan, hold on to yourself because this might give you chafing just to hear it,
Hold on to my hat.
They've been known to mate up to 500 times in 6 hours.
Get those rookie numbers. Get those numbers up. So rats are filthy bastards for 2 reasons.
Yeah. The resulting pregnancy usually lasts about 3 weeks, and the litter size typically range from 6 to 20 babies. So just in a year, 2 rats can produce over 80. Now that's just them on their own. That's not including all of the offspring also producing. Those are just those 2 rats. Taking into account that those rat pups can then reproduce in 5 weeks, you have an infestation of thousands in just a couple years. It doesn't take any time at all for an area to get completely overrun with rats.
Yeah, you could see how the whole thing, like the bubonic plague, kind of really.
I was waiting to see if you bring that up, because apparently the rats weren't actually the issue with that. It was like, oh no, it was the fleas that came off the rats. Apparently there was an infestation of, and this is about as weird a sentence I've ever said in my life, an infestation of wild gerbils. And apparently they were the ones carrying the fleas that had the bubonic plague. The rats get a lot of grief for that.
Shtick.
Yeah, but apparently it was gerbils. I mean, I'm sure it was rats too. I'm sure it was just everywhere. And the fact
Did you ever hear the gerbil song?
I don't think I have ever heard the gerbil song. Have you ever heard of felching?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, the Stephen Lynch one.
Oh, no. I don't know if I've heard a lot of Stephen Lynch. I don't know if I've heard gerbil song or not.
Oh, it's...
Every time I hear D&D from Stephen Lynch, I always think of you guys. You.
Oh, yeah.
And the rest, yeah. But yeah.
All hail the gerbil king. Lemmy winks.
But, I mean, that comes down to, like, the British seeing cats as being connected to the devil and eradicating all the cats because of bad luck and everything, and then the rise of rodents through the cities, and yeah, it's a whole big thing. Again, fucking British. Anyway, what makes a rat truly terrifying, though, are the teeth. Rats' teeth are extraordinarily strong. They can cut through steel and concrete. So rat teeth score on a 5.5 on the Mohs scale of hardness, which is harder than steel. They can chew through anything from wood to soft concrete to lead. So the human body would be like butter. And that's not even mentioning their jaw strength, which is the most powerful jaw of any rodent. Some estimates say their jaw muscles are able to exert up to 6,000 pounds of force per square inch. Now, for comparison, the human jaw bite force comes in at around 70 pounds per square inch.
I was going to say, it sounds like an alligator or a crocodile.
Well, a hippo comes in at 1,800, and a Nile crocodile comes in at 5,000. So technically, a rat's jaw strength is 1,000 pounds per square inch stronger than a crocodile.
Dear Lord. I retract what I said about badgers earlier, and I'm replacing it with rats.
Yes, they're fucking terrible. Again, I know people who've had rats as pets. These things are fucking terrifying. If anything goes wrong, if something goes foobar, you're screwed.
That's nuts.
Anyway, now you would think that something this barbaric would be left in the Middle Ages where it belongs. But these are humans we're talking about. And to quote one of my favorite shows of all time, in fact, the show that my background is based on, people are bastard-coated bastards with bastard filling.
Yeah, that's good.
So we'll jump forward from Europe of the 17th century to the Americas in the 20th, where from Brazil during the, quote, years of lead under the rule of General Emilio Garrastazu Medici, I'm destroying his name, but I don't feel bad because he's a fucking dick. And his head of torture, Colonel Carlos Brilhante Ustra, Uruguay through the political unrest of the 70s and 80s, the dirty war in Argentina through the mid to late 70s and early 80s, a period of United States-backed terrorism, and the reign of Augusto Pinochet through the early 70s all the way up into the 90s, rats were inserted, sometimes through tubes, sometimes by hand. And again, this is why I asked you if you knew what felching was, into the vaginas and rectums of political prisoners.
I was going to say now, our Patreon listeners may think to themselves, wow, this sounds awfully familiar. That's because Dan covered it when Kevin's internet dropped.
I didn't know Dan covered it because here I am talking
and that was the recto thingy, what you call it? The
Yeah.
recto something. I can't remember. I messaged you about it and said, hey, I'm talking about this. It's really weird. The rectoscope.
Yeah, the rectoscope. Yeah, I didn't get your messages while I was running around trying to figure out what the fuck I was going to do to hook up my recording.
Yeah.
But
yeah, well, that's why you're hearing this thing on the double now, people. Who did a better job? You tell me.
We're
probably Kevin.
We're beating it in. So, anyway, yeah, into the vaginas and rectums. And a lot of times this was done to people, mostly women, obviously, the vaginas.
Sorry, I was going to say, squeaky
vaginas.
bum time.
Yeah.
No, squeaky bum time. No, rats squeak.
Obviously. But it was done in front of their children.
Oh, no, that's not fun.
No, that's not cool.
You just took all the fun out of it.
Leave it to Kevin to make it depressing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, that's the German in me. I gotta. Yeah. And of course, we can't talk about rats without bringing up mafia hitman and serial killer, the Iceman, Robert Kuklinski, who between 1949, at the age of 13, and 1986, killed anywhere from 6 to 100 people. He claimed that on multiple occasions, he would kidnap his victims rather than conventionally murdering them. He'd bound their hands and feet with tape. Then he'd leave the victims in a cave in the wilderness where they were eaten alive by rats, attracting by the victims' cries. Now, Kuklinski claimed he filmed these deaths as proof to the buyer that the people suffered before the death. Now, it was never proven these tapes nor the bodies were ever recovered, but the Iceman's reputation, anything is possible. I mean, this was a guy who he walked up to it happened a couple times. He'd walk up to somebody on the street corner and just put a bullet in the back of their head and walk off.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, he didn't give a fuck.
I love the numbers, though. It's like 6 or 100. It's like getting pulled over by the cops. And it's like, how fast are we going? Somewhere between maybe 20 and 200. I don't know.
You get pulled over by the cops. You know why I pulled you over? Well, it's either because I didn't use my turn signal or that bank I just robbed. It's somewhere in between.
Yeah, somewhere between the two. Yeah.
Well, he confessed and was convicted of, I think, between 4 and 6. I think he was convicted of 4 and then confessed to 2 more. But also,
he said, "What about the other 94?"
Yeah, but also, he was a talker. He told people about some of the stuff. He did do hits for some of the major crime families in New York for a couple decades. So obviously it's more than 6. Is it 100? But obviously,
was he part of Murder Incorporated then or something? Or was that too early?
I don't know. He wasn't part of Murder Incorporated. That was earlier than him, but he wouldn't have been anyway because he was he was a work on his own type of guy.
Sorry, I forgot about the years. Sorry, that Murder Inc. was around. Sorry, it was up. It was between the 20s and 40s.
Yeah. If he was to work with someone and have a partner, more than likely that partner would end up dead too because he didn't want any witnesses. If there was witnesses, it was just random people on the street. But we're not done quite yet. Because in 2010, in New Jersey, a case was reported in which David Wax used rat torture on Israeli citizen Yisrael Bruxman to agree to give his wife a gittin, or a get, which is a Jewish document for divorce. Now, this was only a single layer of a plan that also involved being urinated on, burned with acid, and buried alive. But this was part of a New York divorce coercion gang, which operated from the 1980s to 2013, viciously assaulting Jewish men to get a gittin'. Women would contract these Jewish men to go out and torture their husbands until they decided to give them a divorce.
Ooh.
I mean,
Get good, huh?
it's ridiculous. So yeah, the last time rat torture was recorded was in 2010.
What? Really?
Yeah, that's when this
right.
happened. It happened between the 80s between the 80s and 2013. And David Wax was his name, was the guy who got arrested for it. 2010. Doesn't say exactly what he did, but it doesn't really
crazy,
matter.
Yeah.
So
it still amazes me when you hear these things happening.
Yeah, the breast ripper happened just a few years ago.
Yeah,
there was a few other ones that we had covered that happened just,
Again, Nanking was not that long ago.
Nanking wasn't that long ago. Ling Chi was still being used in the 20th century, the very early part of the 20th century. It goes on and on. Fuck, they're still beheading and hanging people when Star Wars came out. Because, and I imagine their last words were like, better than Harry Potter.
Yeah. See, that's the great thing is Star Wars is still coming out.
Is it though? Is it still?
Yeah.
Is it a good thing that's?
I haven't. Well, it depends. Mando's pretty good. I haven't watched the latest
great.
ones.
I love the Mandalorian. It's fucking amazing.
The
Book of
Boba Fett was
Fett
very disappointing.
Because
it's half Mando, you see. The Mando half
Fett,
is good.
It should have been the Book of Boba Fett and Mando.
Yeah, that's Mando and friends.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah. So Mandalorian is great. The cartoons have been great.
Mando and the Hendersons.
So it's no doubt that this specific torture was absolute hell on the people that experienced it. But let's not forget about the true victims through all this. The rats themselves.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they never asked for this. They would much rather just be left alone. Here you are, just capturing them and putting them.
Mind your own business is under your up some guy's butt.
You're putting them inside some guy's pants in India, and they have to find their way out.
Yeah.
Well, they don't want to go through the shit, literally, but you make them.
Yeah. It's like, it smells like Gandhi's tongue in here.
All right, Dan, since I wasn't around for all the pop culture stuff, you want to let me in on what you talked to everybody about? Well, at least on Patreon. So, Patreon, if you're a part of our Patreon.
I very boringly went through rats in movies and argued the case over the fact that even though I googled rats in movies, there were movies that came up that are quite literally mice, and it's in the title, chipmunks, as well. They're not rats. Like, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Like, Stuart Little is a mouse, people, and then you have Alvin and the Chipmunks comes up in the search. It's stupid, like, But anyway, I was just, like, talking about things, like American Tail and stuff like that, mentioning things like that. But, like, this isn't to do with the torture, obviously, because there's no torture in American Tail. You can watch it, kids. It's fine. It's a great film.
Except for that fucking song where Fievel and his sister are both looking at the moon, singing at the same time. It's just, oh, God, it just rips your fucking heart out. Oh.
I always wondered as well about the pronunciation of this. The Secret of Nim?
Yeah, Nim, I believe it is.
Nim, yeah. That was a good one. Anyway, yeah, and then I moved on from there where one example of where it's used is in George Orwell's 1984. There's the rat cage face cage that you mentioned. Just some pretty good pictures of that and just drawings of it and all sorts of stuff if you were to Google it. Where it looks pretty funny, actually. There's one of them where the guy's head is completely out of proportion to the rest of them. Obviously, the Game of Thrones one, which you already mentioned, but then the same thing is actually done. This is the one that I had in my head when it was first brought up.
Sure.
Which was in Too Fast, Too Furious, or Too Crap, Too Furious, because it
never.
is a terrible film. I'll admit I liked the very first one, but then because it was decent concept, but then when they started using people who are car thieves to topple world governments and dictatorships, that's when they lost me. You know,
becomes a little much.
So we got to disarm a nuke with family, you know, and it's just like, no, get out of it, you know, like an undercover cop going in with a bunch of car thieves, and so to find out what the hell they're doing, like that's good, like that makes sense. It actually is, you know, but then have these car thieves go undercover with some drug lord guy. Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. They shoehorn in this whole thing. He likes to look at people racing, so therefore, you know, get to know him, and he'll like to look at you guys racing. You know, I was like, yeah, okay, cool.
Next thing you know, there's a Mustang dragging a safe down the road, and
Tokyo Drift was actually a decent one.
Wouldn't rip the car in half at all. No.
Like the Tokyo Drift one was actually good because it was just all about the intensity of the underground drifting scene in Japan, and how people are just so into it. And it's that and the first one are the two best ones. Fight me over that audio. Fight me. I don't care. They're the best two.
The whole premise of, you know, the underground racing scene, that's a perfectly fine premise to make movies out of. You just they went fucking crazy with it for no
exactly.
For no reason. And all of a sudden now The Rock is there and John Cena.
Stupid.
I don't get it.
The spin-off movie was pretty cool though. If you take it for what it is, the Hobbs and Shaw one. It's actually it's a roller coaster. But in Too Fast, Too Furious, and he does it with an ice bucket from champagne flute thing.
Okay, yeah.
Basically. Yeah. And that's where I knew it from. And there was one other one which I seem to have lost while I was Googling stuff to do with the Gerbil song. If you're over the age of 18, then listen to the Gerbil song by Stephen Lynch. It is pretty damn funny. Then there was something else then that I had up, like I said, and I can't find it now. I'll keep looking, see if I can find it again. But that's, aside from the classic that is the hit song Rats by Kevin's favourite band, Ghost.
Goth Bon Jovi.
Yeah, can you imagine now if Ghost doing a soundtrack to a Fast and the Furious movie? Now that would be right up our alley. But I think that's kind of all I kind of have covered. I'm gonna have to watch the first Fast and the Furious now. The young lad has never seen them.
Okay.
So I actually have to do a little bit of a plug in a few minutes as well for you, just so you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, speaking of that,
trying to help the kid out, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, that's about it. Like, aside from the fact that when you were to Google it, you could Google the scene too. It's like slow methods of torture and stuff like this, which we will be covering some of the items that are on it. But it kind of has a brief mention to do it and has the image from Game of Thrones. All right. It's saying here that it's a staple of modern film and television, but it's not, because it's very rarely used, this exact thing. It's literally in a couple of pieces of film. Like, you know, it's so I don't think I see how it's a staple. Like, it's
I think when it comes to rats being a staple in especially television, is just like when the undercover group or the cops or the criminals or whoever's crawling through the sewers and one of the rats jumps down on their foot and one of them screams, and they're rats, I don't like rats. And that's about as stapley as rats get in that's TV, you know.
Yeah. There's the if you were saying about the rat dungeon, I'm 99% sure I've been there.
Yeah,
because I've been in the Tower of London, but
when I looked it up, that's the attraction is what showed up. People go in.
Yeah, I've definitely been there. Yeah. It's pretty cool. Anybody that's over there hasn't gone there if you're going over that direction. It is pretty cool. Yeah, to be fair.
Yeah, I've seen it on a few travel shows before, and it's one of those places that eventually we'd like to go to. But you know, maybe interview.
I know to the Americans, it's not down the road for me. I'm not in the UK. just in case.
You're over on a different island.
Different island.
You guys got kicked out.
Separated by a big old piece of water. That's, you know. But you guys not over in England?
Nope. Lucky you.
Yeah.
So you guys can go follow us on Instagram and all the other social medias at TorturePod. Email us, torturepod@gmail.com. If there's anything you would like for us to cover, just like Joey did, she said, hey, tell me about rat torture, and here we are doing the show on it. Or if you have any comments, hey, why the fuck can't you guys get your shit together when you're recording? That's perfectly understandable comment you could have. Rate and review on Apple, follow, subscribe on whatever service you're listening on. Head over to our YouTube page where we're doing little snippets or excerpts of the show where you can actually see our bright and shining faces. I'm sure whatever excerpt I use for this one is going to be just perfect.
It's going to be me on my own.
Just probably. Kevin, please come back quick. I don't like it over here.
Yeah.
If you like to,
what am I supposed to do?
If you like to donate to the show so I can get better equipment and so this shit doesn't happen again, you can on our link tree.
Here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or what you can find on our socials, or you can go to buymeacoffee.com/torturepod and donate there. You can also go to that link on our link tree, which is again on our socials. Now, by the time the next episode comes out, our Patreon and merch store should be up and public.
So I can get a new hat.
Yes, I say that, fingers crossed, that nothing else goes completely foobar and I can actually get it done. But I'm very close, just trying to polish off a few more things before we get it going.
So how does it work me buying a hat from myself then?
I can still get you a hat. That's fine. Working with different merch stores, trying to figure out which one exactly goes. Like, well, this one has better quality, but they are more expensive. Well, this one, quality's okay most of the time. Some of the times it's shit. People have complained about customer service. It's like who to go through and what to do. So I've been, very indecisive there. And then getting all this shit up for Patreon. But by the next episode, they should be both up and running. And we'll have all the info for our Patreon tiers and what you can expect to get for your, dollar or $3.
Yeah, and as I said before, I hope to have a look into it, and I talked to a couple of friends of mine about potentially finding an alternate company or whatever to be able to order through for stuff for Europe, because postal packaging from the UK for items simple as hats and shirts and things like that is ridiculous.
Yeah. So
it's insane.
Yeah. For all of our listeners who aren't in America or Canada or Mexico, the places that we're looking at to get merch from, they will ship to other countries. They do ship internationally. The price is kind of out of this world though. So we will be looking
worth
for
it.
Yeah, we will. Well, maybe, but we will be looking for somewhere in Europe, hopefully near Dan. Maybe Dan could just make them on his own and send them to people. He doesn't have anything else to do.
No, yeah, I'm just sitting here all day
waiting for me.
PJs.
He's literally sitting at his computer all day waiting for me to get back on Zoom. Yes, with that look on your face. Wait, I wish he'd get his internet fixed.
Yeah.
See, today mine was running on a potato.
Yeah.
Yours was fine. Mine was. But it seemed to be okay ever since I came inside, so. Oh well.
Might be thing for the future. Just in case,
Yeah. So our hint for our next episode, it's a slow, painful death, but a hell of a diet plan. And that's what you get.
Hell of a diet plan.
Yeah, that's all you get.
All right, okay.
It's actually the worst diet plan, but, whatever.
Nice.
Oh, fuck. This has been a complete shit show of an episode, just so everybody knows. Hopefully it all comes out better, but...
So, our apologies to Joey again then, in that case, because it was Joey that requested this.
It's just been a shit show. Like, to the point where I just want to delete the whole thing and redo it, but we're not going to do that. We've done that once before, except I forgot to hit record that time. That wasn't fun, so we're not doing that again. We'll just have to deal with this being a shit up. That'll be the name of the episode, Rats Shit Show.
Yeah, that wouldn't be too bad.
Might be a good one.
Two rats, too curious.
Oh, fucking hell. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, you wanted to, let's...
I was going to try and plug the young lads. YouTube, he's trying to get his subscribers up.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, this is for the younger audience. So basically, if your children, older teenager kind of audience, the young lad has a YouTube channel has mainly games and football, soccer, and video games, and he's gone under the title of Nyoda, Nayyoda. So to search for it on YouTube is at Nayyoda_.
Okay.
And it's like a purpley, bluey, circular thing.
All right. Yeah, go check that out.
Like and subscribe. And then you can like and subscribe to my one at What's All the Fuzz About. Guitar stuff.
No, I mean, if you're into guitar stuff or pedals or just like hearing Dan's voice, go ahead. Shoot over there.
Damn straight.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do a play guitar.
Oh, yeah, baby.
All right. Well, let's get out of here before it just gets worse. All right. Take care of yourselves. Take care of one another, and we'll see you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Yeah. Oh, rats. Fucking bastard rats.